Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, wind screaming across your skin, staring into the infinite horizon where water meets sky. Your heart pounds. Your legs shake. Every instinct in your body begs you to step back, to retreat into safety. But what if the only way to truly live is to move forward? What if the secret to happiness isn't found in endless positivity, but in learning what's worth caring about and what deserves to be left behind? There was once a man named Charles Bukowski, a chronic alcoholic, a gambler, a failure by every conventional measure. For 30 years, rejection letters piled up on his desk. His work was called disgusting, depraved, worthless. He lived in poverty, numbing his pain with booze and bad decisions. And yet, when he finally got his shot at 50 years old, he didn't try to become someone else. He didn't chase success. He simply accepted who he was, flaws and all, and wrote honestly about it. On his tombstone, he left 2 words that capture everything we're about to explore. Don't try. This is not a story about achieving more. It's about caring less. Not about everything, but about the right things. Because in a world that screams at us to be better, richer, happier, more successful, the most radical act is to decide what actually matters and let everything else fall away. You're watching the book Sanctuary. Mark Manson didn't set out to write a self-help book. He was fed up with them, tired of the empty promises, the relentless positivity, the idea that if you just think happy thoughts and work hard enough, everything will fall into place. He'd spent years traveling the world, chasing excitement, running from pain, and he discovered something most people never admit. Absolute freedom means nothing if you don't know what to do with it. The subtle art of not giving a**ck is his answer to a culture obsessed with being extraordinary. It's a book that challenges everything we've been taught about happiness, success, and the good life. Manson argues that the key to a better life isn't trying harder or wanting more. It's about choosing better problems to solve. It's about accepting that pain is inevitable, that we'll never be perfect, and that's okay. More than okay, actually. It's the only way forward. This isn't a book about giving up. It's about giving a damn about the things that truly matter. It's about learning to say no, learning to fail, learning to accept responsibility for your own life without blaming others or pretending you're a victim. And most importantly, it's about confronting the one truth we spend our entire lives avoiding. We're all going to die, and that reality should shape every decision we make. Over the next hour, we're going to walk through Manson's philosophy step by step. We'll explore why suffering is necessary, why you're not special, why you should embrace uncertainty, and why rejection might be the greatest gift you can give yourself. By the end, you'll understand why the path to happiness isn't paved with endless positivity, but with honest, uncomfortable truth. So let's begin. We've all been there. You wake up feeling anxious. Maybe it's about a conversation you need to have, or a deadline looming, or just a vague sense that something isn't right. And then, before you know it, you're anxious about being anxious. You start wondering why you can't just relax like everyone else. Why do you always feel this way? What's wrong with you? Welcome to the feedback loop from hell. It works like this. You feel bad about something, and then you feel bad about feeling bad, which makes you feel even worse, which makes you feel bad about feeling worse, and on it goes until you're trapped in a spiral of self-judgment and misery. It happens with anger too. You get mad. Then you get mad at yourself for being so angry. And suddenly you're punching walls and wondering who you've become. Manson argues that this loop is one of the defining problems of modern life. We live in a world where we're constantly bombarded with images of people who seem to have it all figured out. We scroll through social media and see vacation photos, promotions, perfect relationships, and we can't help but compare ourselves. And when we inevitably fall short, we feel like failures. Not because we're actually failing, but because we believe we should feel happy all the time. We've been sold the lie that negative emotions are bad, that if we're anxious or sad or frustrated, something is fundamentally wrong with us. But here's the truth. Negative emotions are part of life. They're necessary. They're the way our brain tells us that something needs attention. if you touch a hot stove. Pain tells you to pull your hand away. If you're lonely, sadness tells you to reach out and connect. Emotions are feedback, not truth. And when we start treating every uncomfortable feeling like a crisis, we trap ourselves in that loop. Manson's solution is radically simple. Stop giving a f***ck about feeling bad. Not in a nihilistic, nothing matters kind of way, but in a practical, liberating way. Accept that pain is part of the human experience. Accept that you're going to feel anxious sometimes, that you're going to get angry, that life will disappoint you. And instead of spiraling into self-judgment, just acknowledge it and move on. Think about it this way. George Orwell once said that to see what's in front of your nose requires a constant struggle. We're so busy distracting ourselves with endless entertainment, with substances and shopping and social media, that we never stop to confront what's actually bothering us. We numb the pain instead of understanding it, and that numbing, that avoidance, is what keeps us stuck. The feedback loop from hell thrives on avoidance. It feeds on the belief that we should always feel good, that discomfort is the enemy. But the moment you accept that discomfort is inevitable, the loop loses its power. You stop fighting reality. You stop blaming yourself for being human. And paradoxically, you start to feel better. This is the backwards law at work. The more you chase happiness, the more it eludes you. The more you desperately try to feel good, the worse you feel. But when you stop chasing, when you stop demanding that life be easy and pleasant all the time, you create space for real contentment. Not the shallow, Instagram-filtered version, the deep, grounded kind that comes from accepting life as it is. So the first step in Manson's philosophy is this. Stop trying so hard. Stop demanding that you feel good every minute of every day. Life is messy. You're messy. That's okay. In fact, that's the whole point. There's an old Buddhist story about a prince who had everything. His father, a king, wanted to protect him from suffering. So he built high walls around the palace and filled the prince's life with luxury. Every need was met, every desire fulfilled. The prince grew up never knowing pain, never experiencing loss, never seeing the harsh realities of the world outside. But something strange happened. Despite having everything, the prince was miserable. He felt empty. Nothing brought him joy. So one night, he snuck out of the palace and saw, for the first time, sickness, old age, and death. And it shattered him. He realized that his father's attempt to shield him from suffering had made him weak, entitled, and incapable of appreciating anything. This prince eventually became the Buddha. And the first teaching of Buddhism is simple. Life is suffering, not in a pessimistic, doom and gloom way, but in a realistic, honest way. Pain is inevitable. Loss is inevitable. Disappointment is inevitable. And the only way to find peace is to accept this, not run from it. Manson takes this idea and runs with it. He argues that happiness isn't something you find or achieve. It's not a destination. It's a byproduct of solving problems. And here's the kicker. Problems never go away. They just change. When you solve one problem, another one takes its place. That's life. That's how it's always been. Think about it. You're broke, so you work hard and make money. Great. Now you have new problems. How to invest it. How to keep it. How to deal with people who suddenly want something from you. You're lonely, so you find a relationship. Wonderful. Now you have new problems. Communication, compromise, navigating conflict. You achieve a goal, and instead of eternal bliss, you just find yourself staring at the next mountain to climb. This is why so many people feel unfulfilled even when they get what they want. They've been taught that happiness is algorithmic, that if they just achieve X, they'll finally be happy. If they get the promotion, the house, the partner, the body, then everything will click into place. But it doesn't work that way. Because happiness isn't about eliminating problems. It's about choosing problems worth solving. Manson introduces a character he calls Disappointment Panda. This superhero shows up at your door and tells you the harsh truths you need to hear, but don't want to accept. Things like, making a lot of money won't make your kids love you. Or, If you have to ask yourself whether you trust your wife, you probably don't. Disappointment Panda reminds us that the greatest truths in life are usually the most unpleasant to hear. And one of those truths is this: problems never end. If you're waiting for a life without problems, you'll be waiting forever. The drunk hobo on the corner has money problems. Warren Buffett has money problems. They're just different money problems. Better money problems, sure, but still problems. So what's the solution? Hope for a life full of good problems. Problems you enjoy tackling. Problems that align with your values. Because happiness comes from solving problems, not avoiding them. If you avoid your problems, you end up denying reality, numbing yourself, blaming others. And that leads to a life of insecurity, anger, and despair. Emotions play a role here too. We've been taught to trust our feelings, to follow our gut, to let our emotions guide us. But emotions are just feedback. They're not truth. They're biological signals designed to nudge us toward beneficial action. Feeling sad after a breakup doesn't mean your life is over. It means something needs to change. Feeling anxious before a big presentation doesn't mean you're doomed to fail. It means your brain is preparing you to perform. The problem is that we over-identify with our emotions. We let them control us. We make decisions based purely on how we feel in the moment, and then we wonder why our lives are chaotic. A 3-year-old operates this way. A dog operates this way. Adults shouldn't. Manson argues that emotions are part of the equation, but not the whole equation. Just because something feels good doesn't mean it is good. Just because something feels bad doesn't mean it is bad. You have to use reason to keep emotions in check. You have to question them, understand them, and decide whether they're pushing you in the right direction. This brings us to a critical question. What pain do you want to sustain? Everyone wants to be successful, to have great relationships, to be happy. But what are you willing to struggle for? What are you willing to suffer for? Because that's what determines the quality of your life. Most people fantasize about the end result. They imagine themselves on stage, famous and adored. They imagine themselves wealthy, respected, powerful. But they don't think about the thousands of hours of practice, the rejection, the failure, the loneliness that comes with that path. They want the reward without the process. And that's why they never get it. Manson uses himself as an example. For years, he fantasized about being a rock star. He imagined the crowds, the applause, the glory. But when he actually tried to pursue it, he realized he hated the process. He didn't want to practice for hours every day. He didn't want to haul equipment to gigs. He didn't want to deal with the logistics and the grind. He wanted the result, not the struggle. And so he failed. Not because he wasn't talented, but because he wasn't willing to endure the pain required to get there. The truth is, you are defined by what you're willing to struggle for. The person who enjoys the struggle of the gym is the one with the six-pack. The person who enjoys the uncertainty of entrepreneurship is the one who builds a successful business. The person who enjoys the emotional turbulence of relationships is the one who finds lasting love. This isn't about willpower or grit. It's about values. It's about choosing problems that align with who you are and what you care about. Because if you choose the wrong problems, you'll be miserable even if you succeed. And if you choose the right problems, you'll find meaning even in the struggle. So ask yourself, what pain am I willing to sustain? What struggles am I willing to embrace? Because the answer to that question will shape the trajectory of your entire life. Let's talk about entitlement. It's everywhere. It's the belief that you deserve something simply because you exist. That you're owed happiness, success, love, respect, without having to earn it. And it's quietly destroying us. Manson tells the story of a guy named Jimmy. Jimmy was always hustling, always talking about his next big idea, always name-dropping and bragging about his connections. He had projects in the works, deals on the table, opportunities just around the corner. But nothing ever materialized. He was a professional leech, living off family money and girlfriends, convinced that he was destined for greatness despite never actually doing anything. The crazy part? Jimmy felt good about himself. He had sky-high self-esteem. He believed he was special, that everyone else just didn't see his genius. And this delusional confidence allowed him to keep going, to keep spinning stories, to keep avoiding reality. This is the dark side of the self-esteem movement. For decades, we've been told that feeling good about yourself is the key to success. That if you just believe in yourself, anything is possible. Schools started handing out participation trophies. Parents told their kids they were unique and special. Motivational speakers sold the idea that you can be anything you want to be if you just think positively enough. But here's the problem. It's not true. Feeling good about yourself doesn't lead to success. Success leads to feeling good about yourself. And even then, only if you're measuring success by the right metrics. Jimmy felt great about himself because he'd adopted a terrible value system. He measured his worth by his potential, not his actions. By his dreams, not his results. And because he never had to confront the reality of his failures, he never grew. He stayed stuck in a loop of entitlement and delusion. Entitlement comes in two forms. The first is obvious. I'm awesome and everyone else sucks, so I deserve special treatment. The second is more insidious. I suck and everyone else is awesome, so I deserve special treatment. Both are self-absorbed. Both are destructive, and both stem from the same root, a refusal to take responsibility for your own problems. Manson argues that true self-worth comes from being able to look at the negative parts of yourself honestly. To say, yes, I'm irresponsible with money. Yes, I rely too much on others. Yes, I avoid difficult conversations. And then to take action to improve. But entitled people can't do this. They're too invested in maintaining their self-image, so they blame others, make excuses, and avoid anything that might challenge their sense of superiority or victimhood. The truth is, you are not special, and that's liberating, because once you accept that you're just an ordinary person with ordinary problems, you stop needing to prove yourself. You stop chasing validation. You stop comparing yourself to everyone around you. You just focus on getting a little bit better every day. Manson experienced this firsthand. As a teenager, he got caught with drugs at school and his life fell apart. He was expelled, homeschooled, isolated from his friends. His parents got divorced. Everything he'd known crumbled. And in the midst of that pain, he developed a deep sense of entitlement. He believed his problems were unique, that no one else could understand his suffering, that he was somehow different from everyone else. This entitlement played out in his relationships. He became a player, chasing validation through sex and attention. He needed to feel wanted, needed to prove that he was lovable, because deep down he felt broken. And this pattern continued for years until he finally realized that his problems weren't special at all. Millions of people have felt the same pain, the same insecurity, the same fear. And that realization, while humbling, was also freeing. Because when you stop seeing yourself as uniquely damaged or uniquely gifted, you stop making excuses. You stop waiting for the world to accommodate you. You start taking responsibility. And that's when real growth begins. The modern world makes this harder than ever. We're constantly exposed to the best of the best, the most beautiful people, the most successful entrepreneurs, the most talented artists. And because we see these extremes all day, every day, we start to believe that exceptionalism is the norm. That if we're not extraordinary, we're failures. But the reality is, most of life is ordinary. Most of us will never be famous. Most of us will never be the best at anything. And that's okay, because the pursuit of exceptionalism is exhausting and ultimately meaningless. It's a race you can never win because the finish line keeps moving. Instead, Manson suggests we aim for something more sustainable, to be good at a few things that matter to us, to build deep relationships, to contribute to something larger than ourselves, to find meaning in the mundane. This doesn't mean you shouldn't have ambition. It means your ambition should be rooted in reality, not fantasy. It should be based on the hard work you're willing to put in, not the outcome you hope to achieve, because outcomes are often outside your control. But effort, discipline, and values are always within your control. So let go of the need to be special. Let go of the belief that you're entitled to an easy life. Accept that you're just another human being, flawed and imperfect, doing your best. And paradoxically, that acceptance will make you happier, more grounded, and more capable of achieving the things that actually matter. In 1944, a Japanese soldier named Hiro Onoda was sent to a small island in the Philippines with orders to never surrender. The war ended a year later, but Onoda didn't know that. Or rather, he refused to believe it. Leaflets were dropped from planes, telling him the war was over. Locals tried to convince him. Even his own government sent letters from his family. But Onoda was certain it was all a trick. So he stayed. For 30 years, he lived in the jungle, stealing food, burning crops, and occasionally killing civilians. He was fighting a war that no one else was fighting, for a cause that no longer existed. And when he finally came home in 1974, he was treated like a hero. But inside, he was devastated, because the Japan he had sacrificed everything for was gone. The values he'd lived by were obsolete, and his suffering, which he believed was meaningful, turned out to be pointless. This is the danger of choosing the wrong values. You can dedicate your entire life to something and still end up empty, because suffering in itself doesn't create meaning. It's the why behind the suffering that matters. Manson argues that suffering is inevitable. It's part of being human. But not all suffering is equal. Some suffering is productive. It teaches us, strengthens us, pushes us to grow. Other suffering is destructive. It traps us, diminishes us, keeps us stuck. And the difference comes down to the values we choose. Hiro Onoda chose loyalty to a dead empire, and that value destroyed him. Norio Suzuki, the young man who eventually found Onoda, chose adventure. He traveled the world with no money, no plan, chasing pandas and yetis and lost soldiers. And he died young, still searching for the abominable snowman. But he died doing what he loved. His suffering had meaning because he chose it. We all choose how we suffer, whether we realize it or not. Our values determine what we're willing to endure. If your value is wealth, you'll endure long hours, stress, and isolation to get it. If your value is family, you'll endure sleepless nights, financial strain, and emotional exhaustion to nurture it. If your value is freedom, you'll endure uncertainty, instability, and the judgment of others to maintain it. The key is to choose values that are healthy, sustainable, and aligned with who you are. Not who you think you should be. Not who society tells you to be. But who you actually are, deep down. Manson introduces the self-awareness onion to help us figure this out. The first layer is simple, understanding your emotions. This is when I feel happy. This is when I feel sad. Most people can get this far, but many struggle with the second layer, asking why. Why do you feel angry? Why do you feel inadequate? Why do you feel lonely? These questions are hard because they force you to confront the root causes of your emotions, not just the surface feelings. But the deepest layer, the one most people never reach, is about values. Why do you consider this a success or a failure? By what standard are you judging yourself? This is where the real work happens. Because if your values are flawed, everything built on top of them will be flawed too. Let's say you feel like a failure because your brother doesn't return your texts. Why? Because you believe brothers should be close. Why? Because family is supposed to matter more than anything. Why? Because being close with family is normal and healthy, and you don't have that. But what if you're using the wrong metric? What if closeness isn't about how often you talk, but about mutual respect and trust? What if your relationship with your brother is actually fine, but you've been measuring it by a standard that doesn't fit? This is the power of questioning your values. When you dig deep enough, you often find that the things causing you pain are based on arbitrary beliefs you've never examined. And once you see that, you can change them. Manson shares the story of Dave Mustaine, the guitarist who was kicked out of Metallica just before they became one of the biggest bands in the world. Mustaine went on to form Megadeth, which sold over 25 million albums and made him a legend in the heavy metal world. But in an interview, he admitted that he still felt like a failure because his metric was be more successful than Metallica. And by that metric, he would always come up short. Compare that to Pete Best, the drummer who was kicked out of the Beatles right before they exploded. Best fell into depression, attempted suicide, and struggled for years. But eventually, he found peace. He got married, had a family, and lived a quiet, happy life. And when asked about his time with the Beatles, he said, "I'm happier than I would have been with the Beatles." Same situation, different values, different outcomes. This is why suffering in itself is meaningless. It's the values behind the suffering that give it purpose. Onoda's suffering was meaningless because his value was rooted in delusion. Mustin's suffering was self-inflicted because his value was rooted in comparison. Best's suffering eventually became meaningful because he changed his values. So what are your values? What are you measuring yourself against? And are those metrics serving you or sabotaging you? Manson identifies a few common shitty values that lead to meaningless suffering. The first is pleasure. Chasing pleasure feels good in the moment, but it's a trap. It's shallow, fleeting, and ultimately unsatisfying. Research shows that people who prioritize pleasure end up more anxious, unstable, and depressed, because pleasure is a byproduct of living well, not a goal in itself. The second is material success. Money, cars, houses. These things can improve your life, but only to a point. Once your basic needs are met, more money doesn't make you happier. And when you prioritize material success over everything else, you sacrifice relationships, health, and meaning. The third is always being right. If your value is being correct all the time, you'll never learn. You'll never grow. You'll never admit mistakes. And you'll alienate everyone around you. The fourth is staying positive. This one is insidious because it's sold as a virtue. But forcing yourself to be positive all the time is just another form of avoidance. It's denying reality. It's refusing to acknowledge pain. And that denial prevents you from solving problems. Good values, on the other hand, are reality-based, socially constructive, and within your control. Things like honesty, creativity, humility, curiosity. These values can be practiced every day, regardless of external circumstances. They don't depend on winning or losing, on being the best or the worst. They just depend on you showing up and doing the work. And when you choose good values, suffering becomes meaningful. It becomes a tool for growth. It becomes something you can endure, even embrace, because you know it's leading you somewhere worth going. So ask yourself, what am I suffering for? And is it worth it? Imagine you're forced to run a marathon at gunpoint. Someone puts a gun to your head and says, "Run 26 miles in under 5 hours, or I'll kill you and your family." That would be terrifying. It would be torture. You'd hate every second of it. Now imagine you chose to run a marathon. You trained for months, bought the right shoes, signed up voluntarily. Your friends and family are at the finish line cheering for you. And when you cross it, you feel incredible, proud, accomplished. Same marathon, same distance, same pain, but the experience is entirely different. Because in one scenario, you're a victim. In the other, you're empowered. And the only difference is choice. Manson argues that this distinction is at the heart of every problem in life. We are always choosing. Even when we feel like we have no choice, we're still choosing how to respond. We're choosing our attitude, our perspective, our values. And when we take ownership of that, everything changes. He tells the story of William James, a man who suffered from crippling health problems his entire life. Blind as a child, constant stomach pain, back spasms so severe he couldn't stand. His family was wealthy and successful, but William felt like a failure. He couldn't hold a job. He couldn't finish school. He was a disappointment to everyone, especially himself. And eventually, he decided to take his own life. But before he did, he made a deal with himself. He would spend 1 year believing that he was 100% responsible for everything in his life. Not at fault, but responsible. Responsible for how he interpreted events. Responsible for how he responded. Responsible for the meaning he gave to his suffering. And if, after 1 year, nothing improved, he would end it. That experiment changed everything. William James went on to become the father of American psychology. He got married, had children, taught at Harvard, and influenced generations of thinkers, all because he took responsibility for his life. This is the key insight. Responsibility is not the same as fault. You are not to blame for everything that happens to you. You didn't choose to be born into poverty, or to have an abusive parent, or to get sick. Those things are not your fault, but they are your responsibility, because no one else can solve your problems for you. No one else can choose how you respond. That power belongs to you, and you alone. Most people resist this idea because it's hard. It's easier to blame others, to play the victim, to say, "It's not my fault, so I shouldn't have to deal with it." And while that might feel good in the short term, it's a trap, because when you give away responsibility, you give away power. You become passive, helpless, dependent on others to fix your life. And that's a miserable way to exist. Manson shares his own example. His first girlfriend cheated on him and left him for her teacher. It was devastating. And for a long time, he blamed her. He obsessed over what she'd done, how she'd hurt him, how unfair it all was. But that didn't make him feel better. It just kept him stuck. Eventually, he realized that while she was to blame for her actions, he was responsible for his own emotions. He couldn't control what she did, but he could control how he responded. And once he took that responsibility, he started to heal. He began working on himself, improving his life, and eventually, he found a healthier relationship. This doesn't mean he forgave her. It doesn't mean what she did was okay. It just means he stopped waiting for her to fix him. He stopped handing his happiness over to someone else and took it back for himself. This principle applies to everything. If you're stuck in a bad job, that's not your fault. But it's your responsibility to find a new one. If you're in a toxic relationship, that's not your fault. But it's your responsibility to leave. If you're unhappy, lonely, or unfulfilled, that's not your fault. But it's your responsibility to do something about it. The moment you accept this, you reclaim your power. You stop feeling like a victim. You stop blaming the world for your problems. And you start taking action. Manson introduces 2 questions to help clarify this. The first is, what if I'm wrong? This forces you to question your assumptions, your beliefs, your certainties. Because most of the time, when we're stuck, it's because we're clinging to a story that isn't true. The second question is, what would it mean if I were wrong? This forces you to confront the implications of being wrong. Because often, admitting you're wrong means admitting you've been wasting time, or hurting people, or living according to values that don't serve you. And that's painful, but it's also necessary. Finally, he asks, would being wrong create a better or worse problem than my current problem? This is the litmus test, because not all problems are equal. Some are worth having, others aren't. And sometimes, admitting you're wrong and changing course leads to a better set of problems. For example, if you're in a miserable job, you might tell yourself, I can't quit because I need the money. And that's true, but it's also a choice. You're choosing financial security over happiness, and that might be the right choice for you, but it's still a choice. And if you own that choice, you stop feeling like a victim and start feeling like someone in control of their own life. The same goes for relationships, health, and everything else. You are always choosing, even when it doesn't feel like it. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can start making better choices. So stop blaming others. Stop waiting for someone to save you. Stop pretending you're powerless. You're not. You have more control than you think. And the moment you take responsibility for your life, everything changes. Here's a hard truth. You don't know as much as you think you do, and neither does anyone else. We love being right. It makes us feel safe, confident, in control. It gives us that illusion of certainty, that comforting sense that the world makes sense, and we have it all figured out. But Mark Manson reminds us of something deeply uncomfortable. Certainty is a trap. Every belief you hold right now about who you are, what's right, what's wrong, and what life means is nothing more than a story your brain made up to make sense of chaos. We invent meaning because the truth that we're small creatures spinning on a rock in infinite space is too much to handle. We cling to these stories, these truths, like lifeboats. But the more tightly we hold them, the less room we leave for growth. Think about it. What did you believe 10 years ago about love, success, friendship, or yourself? How much of that do you still believe today? How many times have you sworn you were right, only to realize later that you were completely wrong? It's humbling, isn't it? That's the paradox of wisdom. The more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. Mark calls this the joy of being wrong, because being wrong isn't failure, it's progress. It means you've learned something new, peeled back another layer of illusion, and moved one step closer to truth. But here's the problem. We live in an age that worships certainty and punishes doubt. We scroll through endless feeds of outrage, where everyone's shouting their opinions louder than the next person. No one's listening to understand, they're listening to attack. No one's seeking truth, they're seeking victory. But winning arguments doesn't make you wise. It makes you stubborn. Wisdom lives in humility, in the quiet courage to say, I might be wrong. There's a story of a man who spent years studying psychology. He became so confident in his theories that he believed he could predict every human behavior, until one day, his own marriage collapsed, and he didn't see it coming. That's when he realized something Manson emphasizes again and again. You can't analyze life from a distance. You have to live it. You have to mess up. You have to be wrong. That's how you learn. The truth is, being wrong hurts because it shatters our identity. We build our sense of self around our beliefs, our religion, our politics, our ideas of love and success. So when someone challenges those beliefs, it feels like an attack on us. But what if we saw it differently? What if every time someone proved us wrong, it wasn't humiliation, but evolution? What if being wrong meant we were simply becoming someone wiser? Mark Manson calls this mindset radical humility. It's not about doubting yourself constantly. It's about being brave enough to admit that your perspective is limited, that your mind is a lens, not the full landscape. And here's the beauty of that. Once you accept you're wrong about most things, you stop needing to be right all the time. You stop defending your ego and start defending your growth. You stop arguing to win and start listening to learn. In relationships, this shift can save love. Instead of fighting to prove your point, you start fighting to understand each other. In work, it can unlock creativity. Instead of fearing mistakes, you start seeing them as experiments. So the next time you're absolutely certain about something, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, what if I'm wrong? That single question can change everything. Your relationships, your career, your peace of mind. Because admitting you're wrong doesn't make you weak. It makes you free. Free to grow. Free to learn. Free to evolve. Humility isn't the absence of strength. It's strength without arrogance. It's confidence with compassion. It's the quiet understanding that you are forever a work in progress. And that's the truth that makes life so beautifully human. Failure. It's the word that makes our stomachs twist and our hearts drop. The one thing society tells us to avoid at all costs. But Mark Manson flips the script. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the foundation of it. From the day we're born, we're conditioned to fear mistakes. At school, we're punished for being wrong. At work, we're judged for not meeting expectations. On social media, we're shamed for not being perfect. But here's the thing. Failure isn't what breaks us. It's what builds us. Think of every great artist, athlete, or innovator you admire. Every single one of them has failed repeatedly. The only difference between them and everyone else is this. They didn't let failure define them. They let it refine them. Manson tells the story of a man named Pete, a young comedian who dreamed of making people laugh. But his first few performances were disasters. He bombed on stage, night after night. Crowds heckled him. Clubs stopped inviting him back. Most people would have quit, but Pete didn't. He went home and studied his performances, every pause, every reaction, every silence. He changed his timing, his delivery, his confidence. He learned to laugh at himself before anyone else could. Years later, that same man, Pete, became one of the most respected comedians in the industry. His success didn't come despite his failures. It came because of them. Failure is the most honest feedback you'll ever get. It tells you what doesn't work. It strips away illusions. It humbles you. We live in a world that celebrates perfection, but perfection is sterile. It teaches nothing. Failure, on the other hand, is fertile soil. It's where growth happens. Manson calls this the do something principle. When you're stuck, confused, or afraid, the worst thing you can do is nothing. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for clarity. Just do something, anything. Because action isn't the result of motivation, it's the cause of it. And when you act, even imperfectly, you begin to build momentum. Every small failure teaches you something new. Every mistake becomes a step forward. Think of life like climbing a mountain in the fog. You can't see the peak. You can barely see 2 feet ahead. But if you keep taking steps, one at a time, the path slowly reveals itself. That's what failure is, fog clearing one step at a time. So when life knocks you down, don't ask, why me? Ask, what is this trying to teach me? Failure isn't the end of the road. It's a sign that you're moving in the right direction, that you're pushing boundaries, that you're alive. Every scar, every stumble, every no brings you closer to the yes. That changes everything. Because in the end, the only real failure is never trying at all. We live in a world that glorifies yes. Yes to opportunities. Yes to people. Yes to everything. But Mark Manson reminds us that the quality of your life depends on what you choose to say no to. You can't care about everything. If you try, you'll drown in noise, everyone's expectations, everyone's problems, everyone's opinions. Learning to say no isn't selfish. It's self-respect. Manson tells a story about a woman named Sarah. Sarah was the kind of person everyone relied on. She said yes to every request, extra shifts, family favors, emotional support for friends who never gave it back. She thought saying yes made her kind. But in truth, it made her exhausted, empty, resentful, lost. One day, Sarah broke down. She realized that by always being available for everyone else, she'd become unavailable for herself. So she started saying no. No to overtime that drained her. No to friends who only called when they needed something. No to guilt. And for the first time in years, she felt peace. Because saying no doesn't close doors, it opens the right ones. It's easy to think love means always saying yes. But true love, in romance, family, or friendship, is built on honesty and boundaries. When you say yes to everything, your yes means nothing. Success is the same way. If you chase every opportunity, you end up chasing your tail. But when you focus, when you say no to the distractions, your energy becomes unstoppable. Saying no is hard because it invites conflict. It disappoints people. But every strong person you admire has mastered that art. Steve Jobs once said, "Focusing is about saying no." Because without rejection, there's no direction. Your no defines your yes. When you say no to shallow relationships, you make space for deep connection. When you say no to constant pleasure, you make space for real fulfillment. When you say no to the opinions of others, you make space for your own truth. So, start protecting your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Your attention is the currency of your soul. Spend it wisely. It's not cruelty. It's clarity. And that's where true freedom begins. Death, the one truth that unites every human being who has ever lived, and the one we spend our entire lives trying to ignore. But Mark Manson believes that accepting death is the key to living fully. He tells the story of a close friend, a young woman who passed away suddenly. Her death shattered him. It forced him to confront something he had been avoiding his entire life. the fact that everything ends. In those months of grief, something changed. He realized that life's fragility isn't a tragedy, it's a gift. Because the very fact that we die gives meaning to the days we live. When you truly understand that your time is limited, you stop wasting it. You stop chasing validation, possessions, or perfection. You start living deliberately. You start saying, "I love you" more often. You start forgiving faster. You stop waiting for the right time. Because you finally understand there isn't one. Death is not the opposite of life. It's part of it. The shadow that gives shape to the light. Imagine if you lived forever. Would you still cherish sunsets? Would you still care to dream, to love, to risk? Of course not. It's our mortality that gives life urgency. It's what turns moments into memories. When you remember that you're going to die, you stop giving a f***ck about the superficial things that don't matter. You start caring about the things that truly do. Love, honesty, creativity, kindness. Mark writes, "The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time." So don't run from death. Let it remind you what's real. Live each day as if it's borrowed, because it is. And when the end finally comes, you won't be afraid. You'll look back and know you didn't waste your time chasing illusions. You lived with purpose. You lived awake. Death, the one truth that unites every human being who has ever lived, and the one we spend our entire lives trying to ignore. But Mark Manson believes that accepting death is the key to living fully. He tells the story of a close friend, a young woman who passed away suddenly. Her death shattered him. It forced him to confront something he had been avoiding his entire life. The fact that everything ends. In those months of grief, something changed. He realized that life's fragility isn't a tragedy, it's a gift. Because the very fact that we die gives meaning to the days we live. When you truly understand that your time is limited, you stop wasting it. You stop chasing validation, possessions, or perfection. You start living deliberately. You start saying, "I love you" more often. You start forgiving faster. You stop waiting for the right time. Because you finally understand there isn't one. Death is not the opposite of life. It's part of it. The shadow that gives shape to the light. Imagine if you lived forever. Would you still cherish sunsets? Would you still care to dream, to love, to risk? Of course not. It's our mortality that gives life urgency. It's what turns moments into memories. When you remember that you're going to die, you stop giving a f***ck about the superficial things that don't matter. You start caring about the things that truly do. Love, honesty, creativity, kindness. Mark writes, "The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time." So don't run from death. Let it remind you what's real. Live each day as if it's borrowed, because it is. And when the end finally comes, you won't be afraid. You'll look back and know you didn't waste your time chasing illusions. You lived with purpose. You lived awake.